It was the eve of my birthday, a day I should have been eagerly awaiting, but instead I found myself standing on the threshold of my own home, staring into the darkness of uncertainty. My family, well, let's just say they weren't the epitome of warmth and affection. They weren't the Smiths or the Johnsons. They were more like the Sharks from some twisted family drama. Years of toil, sweat, and tears had brought me to this point. I had clawed my way through high school, my eyes always fixed on the distant promise of a better life. But just as I was about to step into the light of my newfound freedom, they pulled me back into the shadows. I was barely 18, not even done with high school, when they dropped the bomb. It wasn't just my parents. My so-called golden child brother was in on it too. They didn't just kick me out, they hurled me out, as if I were some unwanted piece of trash cluttering their pristine existence. I could have been seething with rage, consumed by bitterness. But oddly enough, I wasn't. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was the realization that couch surfing was a far more appealing prospect than living under their oppressive roof. But life, as it often does, had a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expected it. Just when I thought I had found my footing, just when I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could make something of myself, they came crawling back. It wasn't a reunion filled with hugs and tears of joy. No, it was more like a pack of wolves circling their prey, ready to tear apart everything I had worked so hard to build. They wanted to take it all, the fruits of my labor, the very essence of my being. And you know what? For a moment, just a fleeting moment, I almost caved. There were times when the temptation to beg for their forgiveness was overwhelming. But something deep inside me, something primal and fierce, refused to bow down to their tyranny. So I forged ahead, navigating the treacherous waters of life on my own terms. It wasn't easy, far from it. Being homeless was like navigating a labyrinth with no end in sight. Every turn brought new challenges, new obstacles to overcome. But I refused to be defeated. I found odd jobs here and there, scraping by on the bare minimum. I rented a tiny apartment, shared it with strangers just to have a roof over my head. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a tiny sliver of freedom in a world hell-bent on crushing my spirit. And just when I thought I had found some semblance of stability, fate decided to throw another wrench into the works. The world around me crumbled, crumbling like sandcastles in the tide. Jobs vanished, dreams shattered, leaving behind nothing but the cold, harsh reality of survival. I sold off what little I owned, downsizing to the point of absurdity just to keep my head above water. And when all seemed lost, when I was teetering on the brink of despair, I remembered the one thing I had held on to through it all, a glimmer of hope, a beacon in the darkness. It was a battered old camper, a relic from a time when dreams were still within reach. I had bought it on a whim, a foolish indulgence in the face of adversity. But now it was my salvation, my lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. I parked it on the outskirts of town, a lone sentinel against the tide of despair. It wasn't much, but it was home, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of life. And as I settled into my newfound abode, I swore to myself that I would never let them break me, never let them steal my dreams. Little did I know the storm was far from over, and as the winds of change swept through my life once more, I would be forced to confront the demons of my past, to stand tall in the face of adversity, and to reclaim what was rightfully mine. With my family drama settled, at least for the moment, I focused on rebuilding my life without their toxic influence. Despite the chaos they brought, I found solace in the newfound support from other relatives and friends who saw through their manipulative tactics. Reconnecting with those who truly cared about me helped me regain my footing. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove to myself that I could thrive on my own terms. As I settled into my new role as a supervisor, I encountered challenges, but I faced them head-on, drawing on the resilience I had built over years of adversity. Meanwhile, my living situation stabilized. I no longer had to worry about my family barging in and attempting to take over my home. Instead, I focused on turning my house into a sanctuary, a place where I could truly feel safe and secure. Despite the lingering bitterness towards my family, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief knowing that I had stood my ground. I refused to let them dictate my life any longer. Instead, I embraced the freedom that came with asserting my independence. As the months passed, I continued to make strides in both my personal and professional life. I invested in myself, pursuing hobbies and interests that brought me joy. I surrounded myself with positive influences, grateful for the supportive network I had cultivated. Though the scars from my family's betrayal ran deep, I refused to let them define me. Instead, I focused on forging my own path, one built on resilience, determination, and unwavering self-belief. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would face them with courage and conviction. In the aftermath of the tumultuous events with my family, I found myself reflecting deeply on the concept of forgiveness. Despite the hurt and betrayal, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that holding on to resentment would only weigh me down. I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, delving into books, podcasts, and therapy sessions to unravel the complex emotions swirling within me. Through this process, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about absolving my family of their actions. It was about freeing myself from the burden of anger and bitterness. It wasn't an easy path to walk. There were moments of doubt and frustration, times when the wounds felt too fresh to even consider forgiveness. But with each step forward, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a sense of liberation that I hadn't experienced in years. I began to see my family not as villains, but as flawed individuals trapped in their own cycles of dysfunction. Their actions, though hurtful, stemmed from their own insecurities and shortcomings. And while I couldn't excuse their behavior, I could strive to understand it. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about condoning their actions. It was about releasing myself from the chains of resentment that bound me to the past. It was a gift I gave to myself, a declaration of independence from the toxic patterns that had plagued my family for generations. As I embraced forgiveness, I found myself opening up to new possibilities, forging deeper connections with those around me. I let go of the need for validation from my family, finding solace instead in the love and support of chosen family members and friends who had stood by me through thick and thin. With forgiveness came healing, a gradual process of mending the broken pieces of my heart and soul. I allowed myself to grieve for the family I had lost, while also embracing the newfound freedom to create a life of my own design. In the quiet moments of introspection, I found strength. I realized that my worth was not determined by the approval of others, but by the courage to stand firm in my convictions and live authentically, unapologetically. And so, armed with forgiveness and a renewed sense of purpose, I set out to build a future filled with hope, resilience, and boundless possibility. Though the road ahead might be fraught with challenges, I faced it with a newfound sense of peace, knowing that I was no longer shackled to the past. As I ventured further along the path of forgiveness, I encountered new hurdles and revelations that tested the depth of my resolve. One of the most profound realizations was that forgiveness wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing journey, requiring constant vigilance and introspection. There were moments when old wounds resurfaced with a raw intensity, threatening to engulf me in a tide of bitterness and resentment. But each time I made a conscious choice to confront those emotions head-on, refusing to let them dictate the course of my life. I learned to embrace vulnerability, allowing myself to acknowledge the pain and disappointment that lingered beneath the surface. Instead of burying those feelings, I brought them into the light, exploring their origins and the lessons they held for me. In doing so, I discovered a newfound sense of compassion, both for myself and for those who had wronged me. I recognized that we were all flawed beings, capable of causing harm and experiencing pain in equal measure. And in that recognition lay the seed of empathy, the understanding that forgiveness was as much a gift to others as it was to myself. But perhaps the most transformative aspect of my journey was the realization that forgiveness wasn't synonymous with reconciliation. While I had chosen to release myself from the grip of resentment, it didn't mean that I had to welcome my family back into my life without question. I set boundaries to protect my emotional well-being, recognizing that forgiveness didn't require me to subject myself to further harm. I learned to say no without guilt, prioritizing my own needs and values above the expectations of others. In doing so, I reclaimed my power, carving out a space for myself in which I could thrive and grow without being shackled by the past. I surrounded myself with people who uplifted and supported me, fostering a sense of belonging that transcended the confines of blood ties. As I continued to walk the path of forgiveness, I realized that it wasn't a destination but a way of being, a state of grace that allowed me to navigate life's challenges with courage and compassion. And though the road ahead might be winding and uncertain, I faced it with an unwavering sense of peace, secure in the knowledge that I was free to write my own story, unburdened by the weight of resentment. With each step forward on my journey of forgiveness, I found myself confronted by new layers of complexity and depth. It was as though each layer peeled away revealed another, deeper understanding of myself and the world around me. One of the most profound revelations came as I began to explore the concept of self-forgiveness. While I had been quick to extend compassion to others, I realized that I had been holding myself to an impossibly high standard, punishing myself for my perceived failures and shortcomings. I came to understand that self-forgiveness was not an act of excusing or condoning my mistakes, but a recognition of my humanity. I accepted that I was fallible, capable of making errors and poor decisions, but that those moments did not define me. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, I chose to focus on growth and self-improvement, using each setback as an opportunity for learning and self-reflection. I cultivated a sense of self-compassion, treating myself with the same kindness and understanding that I would offer to a dear friend in need. In doing so, I discovered a newfound sense of freedom, a liberation from the shackles of self-doubt and self-recrimination that had held me back for so long. I embraced my imperfections, recognizing them as integral parts of my journey, rather than obstacles to be overcome. But perhaps the most profound shift occurred when I began to extend the same level of compassion and understanding to those who had wronged me. I realized that forgiveness was not about absolving others of responsibility, but about releasing myself from the burden of anger and resentment. I saw my family through new eyes, recognizing the pain and brokenness that had shaped their actions. Instead of condemning them for their mistakes, I chose to extend empathy and compassion, understanding that we were all products of our past experiences and circumstances. In doing so, I found a sense of peace and closure that I had never thought possible. I no longer carried the weight of past grievances, liberated from the cycle of hurt and retaliation that had kept me bound for so long. As I reflected on my journey, I realized that forgiveness was not a passive act, but a radical act of love and liberation. It was a choice to break free from the chains of resentment and embrace the fullness of life's possibilities. And though the road ahead might still be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, I faced it with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose, secure in the knowledge that forgiveness had set me free to live and love without restraint. In the wake of my newfound sense of liberation, I embarked on a journey of reconciliation, a journey that would test the limits of my newfound understanding and compassion. I reached out to those I had once considered enemies, extending an olive branch in the hopes of forging a path towards healing and understanding. It was a daunting prospect, fraught with uncertainty and apprehension, but I knew that it was a necessary step on the path to true forgiveness. With each conversation, I found myself confronted by the echoes of past hurts and grievances, the wounds still raw and tender beneath the surface. But I persevered, determined to confront the pain head-on and find a way forward. In some cases, reconciliation came easily, the walls of resentment crumbling in the face of open communication and genuine empathy. In others, it was a more arduous process, requiring patience, humility, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But through it all, I remained committed to the principles of forgiveness and reconciliation, refusing to let past hurts dictate the course of my future. I learned to listen with an open heart, to empathize with the pain of others, and to extend grace even in the face of adversity. And slowly but surely, I began to witness the transformative power of forgiveness at work. Old wounds began to heal, fractured relationships were mended, and new connections were forged based on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. But perhaps the most profound transformation occurred within myself. As I let go of anger and resentment, I discovered a newfound sense of peace and wholeness, a sense of being unburdened by the weight of past grievances. I realized that forgiveness was not a one-time event, but an ongoing process, a daily practice of choosing love and compassion over anger and resentment. It was a commitment to seeing the humanity in others, even when they fell short of our expectations. And as I looked out at the world with fresh eyes, I saw the potential for forgiveness to heal not only individual hearts, but entire communities and nations torn apart by conflict and division. In embracing forgiveness as a guiding principle, I had discovered a source of strength and resilience that transcended the boundaries of time and space, a force capable of transforming even the most deeply entrenched conflicts into opportunities for growth and reconciliation. And though the road ahead might still be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, I faced it with a newfound sense of hope and optimism, secure in the knowledge that forgiveness had the power to change the world one heart at a time. Part 7. As I continued on my journey of forgiveness and reconciliation, I encountered moments of doubt and frustration. There were times when old wounds reopened, triggering a flood of painful memories and threatening to derail my progress. But in those moments of darkness, I found solace in the strength of my convictions and the unwavering belief that forgiveness was the only path forward. I reminded myself that healing was not a linear process, but rather a series of peaks and valleys, each offering its own lessons and opportunities for growth. One of the most challenging aspects of my journey was learning to forgive myself. For too long, I had carried the weight of guilt and shame for past mistakes, allowing them to define my sense of self-worth and cloud my judgment. But as I delved deeper into the practice of self-compassion, I began to see myself through a lens of kindness and understanding. I acknowledged my flaws and imperfections without judgment, recognizing that they were an integral part of my humanity. In doing so, I discovered a newfound sense of freedom, a liberation from the self-imposed prison of perfectionism and self-criticism. I learned to embrace my vulnerabilities as sources of strength, rather than weaknesses to be overcome. With each passing day, I felt myself growing lighter, unburdened by the weight of past mistakes and regrets. I forgave myself for not being perfect, for falling short of my own expectations, and for the times when I had caused harm to others, whether intentional or unintentional. And in forgiving myself, I found the capacity to extend that same grace and compassion to others, to see them not as adversaries to be defeated, but as fellow travelers on the journey of life, each grappling with their own struggles and insecurities. One of the most profound realizations of my journey was that forgiveness was not a finite resource, but an infinite wellspring of love and compassion that flowed freely when nurtured and cultivated. The more I practiced forgiveness, the more abundant it became, enriching every aspect of my life and relationships. As I reflected on how far I had come, I realized that forgiveness was not just a destination, but a way of being, a fundamental orientation towards life rooted in love, empathy, and understanding. It was a choice that I made every day, in big and small ways, to let go of anger and resentment and embrace the transformative power of grace. And though my journey was far from over, I faced the future with a newfound sense of peace and purpose, secure in the knowledge that forgiveness would guide me every step of the way. In the midst of my journey of forgiveness, I encountered unexpected challenges and opportunities that tested the depth of my commitment and the resilience of my spirit. One such challenge came in the form of a confrontation with someone from my past, whose actions had caused me immense pain and heartache. As I stood face to face with this person, I felt a surge of emotions, anger, resentment, and fear threatening to overwhelm me. In that moment, I realized that forgiveness was not just about letting go of the past, but also about finding the courage to confront it head-on. With a deep breath, I summoned all my strength and spoke from the heart, expressing the hurt and betrayal I had felt and the longing for reconciliation. To my surprise, the person listened with an open heart, acknowledging the pain they had caused and expressing genuine remorse for their actions. In that moment of vulnerability and authenticity, a bridge of understanding was forged, paving the way for healing and forgiveness to take root. But forgiveness was not just about reconciling with others, it was also about reconciling with myself and the parts of me that I had long suppressed or denied. It was about embracing my shadow self, the aspects of my personality that I found difficult to accept or acknowledge, and integrating them into the fabric of my being. As I embarked on this inner journey of self-discovery, I unearthed buried memories and emotions that had long lain dormant, waiting to be seen and heard. I confronted my deepest fears and insecurities, shining a light on the darkest corners of my soul and finding liberation in the process. With each step forward, I felt a profound sense of liberation, a shedding of old skin, and a rebirth of self. I embraced my flaws and imperfections as integral parts of my humanity, celebrating them as badges of honor rather than sources of shame. And as I looked out into the world with fresh eyes, I saw the transformative power of forgiveness reflected in every interaction and encounter. I witnessed acts of kindness and compassion that transcended boundaries of race, religion, and culture, reminding me of the inherent goodness that resides within each of us. In the end, my journey of forgiveness taught me that true liberation comes not from holding on to the past, but from letting it go. It is a choice we make every day to release ourselves from the shackles of resentment and embrace the boundless potential of love and forgiveness. And though the road ahead may be long and winding, I walk it with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit renewed, knowing that forgiveness will always be my guiding light in the journey of life. As I continued my journey of forgiveness, I found myself drawn to the quiet beauty of nature, seeking solace in the rhythm of the natural world. I wandered through forests alive with the whisper of leaves and the song of birds, feeling a sense of peace wash over me with each step. In the embrace of the wilderness, I found a mirror for my own inner landscape, a place of untamed beauty and raw vulnerability. Here, amidst the towering trees and winding rivers, I allowed myself to be seen and heard, stripped bare of pretense and ego. In the silence of the forest, I found the space to reflect on the wounds of the past and the scars they had left behind. I traced the contours of my pain with gentle fingertips, acknowledging the depth of my sorrow and the resilience of my spirit. And as I sat beside a babbling brook, watching the sunlight dance upon the water, I felt a stirring within me, a sense of forgiveness blooming like a flower in the wilderness. In that moment of stillness, I made a vow to myself to release the burdens of the past and embrace the gift of the present. With each passing day, I found myself growing stronger and more grounded in the practice of forgiveness. I learned to extend compassion not only to others, but also to myself, recognizing that healing begins from within. I delved into the teachings of wise sages and spiritual masters, drawing inspiration from their timeless wisdom and profound insights. I discovered that forgiveness is not a destination, but a journey, a path we walk with humility and grace, guided by the light of love. And so, I continued to walk the path of forgiveness, knowing that each step brought me closer to the truth of who I am, a being of infinite love and boundless compassion. In the embrace of nature's embrace, I found my true home, a sanctuary of peace and forgiveness where my spirit could soar free. The journey of forgiveness led me to unexpected places, both within and beyond myself. As I traversed the landscape of my heart, I encountered moments of profound clarity and illumination, each one revealing new facets of the healing process. One such moment occurred during a quiet evening spent beneath the canopy of stars. I gazed upward, marveling at the vastness of the universe and the infinite possibilities it held. In that expansive stillness, I felt a deep sense of connection to all of creation, a reminder that we are all interconnected, bound together by the threads of love and compassion. It was in that moment of cosmic communion that I realized the true power of forgiveness, to transcend the limitations of the human experience and touch the very heart of existence itself. For in forgiving others, we also forgive ourselves, releasing the chains of resentment and opening our hearts to the fullness of life's beauty. With each passing day, I found myself embracing forgiveness more fully, allowing it to permeate every aspect of my being. I discovered that forgiveness is not a passive act, but an active choice, a conscious decision to let go of the past and embrace the present with open arms. In the midst of life's challenges and tribulations, I held fast to the practice of forgiveness, drawing strength from the wellspring of love that flowed within me. I learned to see the beauty in imperfection, recognizing that each moment is an opportunity for growth and transformation. And so, I continued to walk the path of forgiveness, guided by the light of compassion and the wisdom of the heart. Along the way, I encountered fellow travelers who shared in my journey, offering support and encouragement when the road grew long and weary. Together we forged a path of healing and reconciliation, weaving a tapestry of love and forgiveness that stretched across the vast expanse of the human experience. And in the end, I realized that forgiveness is not merely a destination, but a way of being, a sacred dance of grace and humility that leads us back to the truth of who we are, beings of infinite love and boundless compassion.